I want to welcome everybody to the Resident and Family Support Council. We have these meetings on the second and the fourth Tuesday of every month at 3 o'clock. And the link that got you in for today's meeting is the same link that will get you into every meeting. But by chance, if you have to miss a meeting, do know that they are all on YouTube, so that we have them there for you to be able to view at any time that you would like. And I've seen a lot of people are getting out there and watching. So I want to encourage everybody to do that. And I just want to remind everybody of the purpose of this meeting. The purpose of the meeting is to empower information. If we could just make sure that everybody's mute, so that way then it doesn't distract people, that would be helpful. Because it can be very distracting when we start hearing that background noise. But we do have plenty of time for questions throughout the meeting. And also you can post those in the chat. We have our guru, Stephen Maxwell, one of the regional ombudsmen in Illinois, who monitors that chat. So he helps us out in that regard. I also do want to extend that invitation, thank you to Illinois Pioneer Coalition. That's what you see underneath my name there. They're the ones who actually allow us to use their Zoom account so that we can host these meetings. So thank you to the Illinois Pioneer Coalition for that. So today, I'm actually going to be talking about family councils. And family councils are a really, really important mechanism for people to be able to feel a part of their loved ones' lives and to be able to get information, correct information, and to be able to also form relationships with other people and family members that are in the nursing homes or in the long-term care living facilities as well. And to talk about this conversation today, we've got two people who actually have really been like firing it up in regards to family council. We have Jenine Ferrari and Gloria Murry. Both from New York. So they came all the way from New York via Zoom to join us today. And Jenine is actually a family member and got involved in her family council at her father's, and I'll let her introduce herself more. And then Gloria is an ombudsman in New York, and I know she's been very helpful in getting family councils together. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation so we can hear about how do we do this? How do we get this all going? So Jenine, I'll go ahead and I'll pass it to you right now.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for logging on and spending some time with us today. I started a family council at my dad's nursing home. He lives at a VA nursing home near West Point here in Upper Westchester. 2.5 years ago, once the lockdown started, there wasn't a real family council. So we just started talking to each other, and we grew from 15 people to about 60. And now we're almost at 140, which is a big deal because there are 161 residents in my dad's nursing home. So how do I do it? I smile all the time, even though I'm wearing a mask, and I introduce myself to people and I ask them the innocent question, are you on the family council? And usually they say no, and I sell it to them. Oh no, Lee, you're muted.
That's great. Yes, because that is what a great way to do it. I mean, people don't know what it is when you just put a sign up and they're like, is that an obligation where I'm going to have to like, right. I'm already consumed with my loved one's health and what's going on with my loved one's life. And now all of a sudden I have to, there's a sign. I'd love to do it, but it's so consuming. And then, but to put a face to it, it feels like it makes it more personal for people. And they're like, oh, well, Jenny invited me. I can check that out. I don't have to be a part of it if I don't want. I can check that out.
And they'll always ask me inevitably, well, what is it that I need to do? And I say nothing. I write all the emails. I keep everyone updated on what's going on. If you give me you share your email address with me, I will make sure you're on the email list and you're always in touch and up to date on what's happening. And I've had maybe 2 or 3 people say no.
Really? That's great.
Because even if my mask is on, they can see my eyes are smiling.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's such a great way for families to be able to connect with each other. People sometimes feel alone when you're going through this, and you're so consumed with, even though your loved one may be living in a facility, it does still feel very unempowering to a family member who may have been caring for that family member at home. And now all of a sudden they have to relinquish this care, and it gets scary, and it feels all consuming. And to be able to have just somebody else even sitting there going, I know exactly what you're going through, because I'm right there with you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But I'm not here alone. I'm here with my partner in crime, Gloria Murry.
Gloria, go ahead, Gloria. Tell us a little bit about you.
Okay, thanks. It's great to meet you, Lee, and everybody. And yes, thanks for having us here. So I am an ombudsman. I've been an ombudsman, a staff ombudsman for about 7 years. And before that, I was a volunteer ombudsman. So everything that you and Jenine say about family councils is so true. Before COVID, it's hard to get families involved in even thinking about family council, especially if there's not one in a facility, you know, because as an ombudsman, I was always trying to promote family councils. Like, oh, do you know, there's no family council. Have you heard about it? Would you be interested in hearing about it? And you're right, Lee, families are, oh, I'm too busy. I'm too busy. But then when we started to promote it as a support group for each other, that's how we started to talk about it. It's a support group for all of you to come together, talk about your concerns, and maybe addressing things on a group basis versus each one of you having to go talk about the same thing to the administration. So, but it is tough. It's sometimes it is a challenge, and nobody wants to step up like Jenine did and make it work because everybody's got too much going on in their life and they don't want to get involved, but it is important. And we're excited to be with Long-Term Care Community Coalition because now we can actually really talk and empower families to look at family councils, because we're going to be there to help them. You know, we're going to be there to assist them in maybe setting it up, maybe how to run it, giving them the tools that they need to run it. And, you know, from an ombudsman perspective, I just want to say families don't understand what goes on. And once that resident goes into a long-term care facility, they don't. What they're expecting is not what they are getting. And as every one of us as ombudsmen know, that is the truth, right? They're looking at something, they have this vision of what it's going to be. And then when they get in there, that is not what's going on. So it's important for them to come together and try to help their loved ones on a systemic basis, and help everybody in the nursing home.
Everything you say, Gloria, is so true. And we're actually even looking at having a topic about kind of what to expect in that beginning when you are, you know, becoming a family member and a resident of a long-term care facility. What should that look like? Where do I even go for information? So we're looking at that as a future topic. So, and I want to hear more about this Long-Term Care Coalition. So I know you guys have some slides. Jenine, do you want to share those slides?
Sure. Okay. So I'll share my screen.
Yep. Share your screen, and then you should be able to find it from there.
Oh,
there you go. And then if you go to the icon on the bottom, even it should to the right, very far right, our icon with it looks like something's on a stand, a TV's on a stand.
Yes.
There you go. That's it.
Oh, no. Thank you. Okay. So we prepared just a very short presentation because it's more about talking than about just showing you slides. But Gloria and I think about what we do with the Long-Term Care Community Coalition as family empowerment. Yes, Lee put it beautifully that it is a support group of sorts, but we, more than anything, we empower family members. We help them to empower themselves to advocate for their loved ones. And the Long-Term Care Community Coalition, while it is here based in New York, we work with every state in the United States. It's a small group of people. It's headed by Richard Mollett. If you are familiar with, you look through the newspapers or you go to webinars and you read what's been written or reported about long-term care, often you'll find Richard is quoted in these things, or you'll see him present on a webinar because he is a font of information and he's a wonderful spokesman for what long-term care health should be in the United States. And he hasn't given up yet. So there's Richard and Haley and Gloria and Eric and I. It's a small team, but we are a mighty team. Nursing Home 411 is our URL, is our website's URL. And you can just type in Nursing Home 411 and it'll come up for you. And there is just a font of information. If you can click around, we'll put in the chat what it is for Illinois. Each state has its own little department on our website, but there is one for Illinois, and you can log on and see if any of these things are to your liking. There's a ton of fact sheets that we utilize, me personally, for my family councils members, the new ones especially. I send them a bunch of these frequently asked question kind of fact sheets, because when you get into, you move your loved one into a long-term care facility, or you move into a long-term care facility, there usually isn't an orientation for you to do that. You're basically just one day you wake up and your life is changed and you don't really know how to maneuver. So the best way to maneuver, we find, is to pay attention to some of these fact sheets on the LTCCC website.
And if I can just add,
go for it.
Go ahead, Carrie.
Hey, Janine, it's Carrie.
Hey, Carrie.
Long time no see.
Yes.
So, guys, this website, first of all, so you know, is wonderful. They have documentation of statistics of everything from staffing in our facilities in Illinois to, you know, infection rates, all the rest. It is all on this. Richard is a long-term care encyclopedia in a person. This is truly what he is.
That's right.
The information that's on here is wonderful. I mean, when I met with him at one point and I kept talking about my son's facility, he's like, okay, you got to tell me the name. So I gave it to him. And as soon as he looked it up, he's like, okay, this makes sense. Because I'm very lucky. My son's in a great facility, but this will help you figure out information about your facility that's not always coming from Medicare, not coming from Illinois. It is a combined information and data that is not biased, maybe is the best word I want to use. It's, you know, it's here for the general public, not for the industry.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I just also want to add that even, I'm sorry, Gina, even as an ombudsman, I would take these fact sheets and I would even educate residents on them as well. So the fact sheets are invaluable. If you aren't signed up to Richard's website for the information on the monthly webinars that take place, there's an enormous amount of education being done on monthly webinars. So it definitely is, and it's across the country that people are joining these webinars to listen and hear what's going on. Richard is a strong advocate for long-term care. Absolutely. You're on, Janine.
Yes. Okay. So it is a nonprofit. It's really, we're more geared towards policy. So if you are ever stuck where someone is telling you in the long-term care facility that you're in or your loved one is in, oh, you can't do that, or that's not the law, you'll find the law on our website. And there's nothing more empowering than being able to push back and say, I'm so sorry, but that isn't the law. This is the law, especially like when it comes to things like HIPAA, which is just crazy. Many people who work in nursing homes or long-term care facilities will spout to you, you can't do this or that because of HIPAA, and they don't really understand that HIPAA covers them. It has nothing to do with you. You know, you're not a healthcare provider, or you don't work in healthcare. Just one of many things that I've had kind of said to me in the last 3.5 years during COVID. Just wanted to share that with you. But yes,
just to interject on that. And it's not just the HIPAA stuff, like you said, it's also the regulatory stuff. They're like, oh, we're not allowed to do that in the because our regulations say we can't. And we don't know what we don't know. So
yes.
we're like, oh, okay. And so I do want to tell everybody on the call as well that last meeting we did do the gift of resources. And so on the Illinois Department on Aging's website, under the Ombudsman page and the Family Resident Support Council page, you will find a resource, the gift of resources there. So you could just click on that. And then when you go there, you'll be able to find all the regulations for Illinois as well as for the federal, for all the different types of long-term care facilities that exist in Illinois. So because we need that information, we can't let people say we can't do it because it's a regulation. We want to see that regulation.
And Lee, from an ombudsman perspective, I'm going to tell you that when my families would tell me that, I'd say to them, okay, ask them to show you that regulation. Don't just say, okay, or go try to find it yourself, but ask them to just say to them, very kindly, could you please show me that regulation so I can be informed, right? And so my dad can be informed, or my husband, or my mom. I always say question. As ombudsman, that's what we do, right? We investigate, and we investigate by questions. So I always say to families, if they are referring to a policy or a regulation, just say, could you show me that regulation? Could you show me that policy? I don't think I've seen it. And let them produce it for you. So yes, definitely.
Great idea, Gloria. Great idea.
Let me give you guys the short.
Carrie, just 1 second.
Okay.
Stephen did put into the chat the link directly for that gift of resources. So anybody on the call right now, you can click on that link and it'll bring you right there. Go ahead, Carrie.
Thank you.
So the short, easy part of how does HIPAA affect us? So the facility, any medical place at all, they are required to protect our loved ones' data and information and privacy. We are not. But if you're in the facility and we say, oh, I would like to see this, whether it is the MAR to know when the medication was given, or you want a copy of records, as long as you are a guardian or a medical POA, they are required to allow you access. If you are not under HIPAA, they must get permission to share that data with you. Just because you're the daughter or the wife, if they have not consented, the facility does not have to share it with you. But that is the shortest, easiest version of how does HIPAA affect a family?
Go ahead,
Thank you, Perry.
Stephen?
So I wanted to note that I also put the Nursing Home 411 Illinois page link up in the chat as well.
Thank you, Stephen.
Something else that I found when you go and ask facilities for the regulations, and it's more true during COVID, but sometimes they will bring you the corporate policy, and they don't know the difference between what is law and what is corporate policy because they're just being fed it from corporate. Correct. So if you as a family member get the policy, the rules, and it has the corporate name on the top of the page, call your local ombudsman and take the facility to task. Ask them, where is the actual law? What ILCS number is this? That's all I had.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Next slide. We talked about this. We touched on this a little bit, but Gloria, do you want to talk more about a family council? Since you've seen plenty of them.
So it is a federal regulation, and it does specify that residents and families have the right to join together, which obviously you all know there is resident councils in the facilities, and the residents have the right to have those resident councils. It's also important for families, and families don't know that they can have a family council. So it is to discuss and offer suggestions about facility policies And it is to come together and hopefully have a better relationship with administration. So you don't have to have administration there all the time. I had a couple of family councils. One of them, they always had administration there. They did nothing without administration. The other one only invited administration when they had situations that they wanted. And then I had one where administration ran it until the administrator and I had a conversation, and I was like, how come you're running this family council? It should be theirs. And but the thing is, when I talk to families, I do stress it is to support each other, because it's better in numbers than it is on your own. So if you can strengthen your numbers and discuss the core issues that are happening, it is better to present it to the facility from a family council perspective versus an individual perspective. It's a plan. Residents and families can do activities. They can plan them. They can plan things for the staff. Some resident family councils planned a staff appreciation day, and they would, pick a staff person who was doing above and beyond. They did sometimes participate in educational activities or for any other purpose, but it is a strong, and I do believe in the past, documentation was that facilities who had family councils did have a stronger care network going on, because you do have to work together for the resident. Now, as we know, COVID changed a lot of things. So we're all kind of rebuilding from COVID. I also saw family councils give up because they weren't getting the families to come to the meetings because they didn't feel that anything was ever changing. They were talking about the same things over and over again, and therefore nothing changed. And then one would drop off, two would drop off. So it's important that when you have family councils, keep it to the time frame. Keep an agenda. Keep your minutes. New business, old business. Discuss among family council what is the resolution you're going to look for should you bring this to the administration. Don't just bring things to administration and not have some resolution in your mind as a group as to how it's going to be resolved. Because what families can get discouraged from is if they go there and it just becomes a complaint session and they never see anything coming out of it. That's what you want to prevent. So we have a great toolkit on family council. Jenine, I think that might be next.
Oh no, it's the law.
Well, this is the slide this is the law. Yeah. So, I mean, you all can read that. I don't need to read it to you. The facility must provide a resident or family group. They should provide you a space. Now, I know with COVID resurging and RSV and all of that, it may be unable to have a space, but definitely Zoom is still out there. I know some people are not computer savvy, but try to figure a way to get people involved. They should also help you promote it. So if they have a newsletter, one of our facilities put the family council in a newsletter, but I would not let the facility write what's going to be in the newspaper. I encourage some family member to put a short blurb about come and join your other families or something inviting for them to come to the family council. I encourage all the time, I do encourage that on a family council to invite the resident council president to your family council, because he's the voice and he'll tell you what's going on. He or she will tell you what's going on in that facility. And the one thing I do want to share is, as ombudsman, we are resident centered and resident directed. Always keep in mind that we never want to make the residents feel uncomfortable that their families are getting a little crazy or too strong with the facilities and they would have something to worry about. So that's why I always say invite that resident council president to understand the resident's perspective. This is our resource. Jenine, you want to take that?
Sure. This is a toolkit that we came up with last year. It's available on the website. And it just has a few of the fact sheets that we find are used the most by families and are very useful to families, like care plan meeting, observations and tips about the right to form a family council, the right to form a resident council. It's something that I share with every new person I sign on to our family council. And whenever we speak to, Gloria and I speak to someone from a different long-term care facility throughout New York, we've been concentrating on New York now. We share this family council toolkit with them because, as Lee and Gloria and I have said before, and Stephen as well, and Carrie, you know, to be informed is to be armed, and you can advocate best when you have the facts on your side. So please, if you can log on to Nursing Home 411 and download this, keep it on your desktop. If you want, print it out and carry it with you whenever you go to visit the long-term care facility of your loved one. It's really helpful information, and it's policy. So we know that it's correct. Let's see, and then this primer. Gloria?
Yeah, I gotta tell you, this is beyond, I can't say enough. I have this in my portfolio whenever I am in a nursing home, whenever I go into a care plan meeting with the resident and family, whenever I sit down at a meeting, this is the first thing I put out on my table in front of me, because it has so much information in there, and it does crosswalk your regulation to your resident rights. And as ombudsman, you know, we are there for their resident rights. And I know everybody is different, but the resident rights are important. And I crosswalk this. I even crosswalk this, I'm going to be really honest, one day in a meeting about laundry. And I went through it, and I know it was a discussion on laundry with the staff. And I actually went to the thing about providing services. If you are providing services such as laundry, you have to make sure that families know and residents know how the laundry gets done. So if you lose it, you might have a little bit of ownership here to replace it. So it is, I strongly suggest that you look at it, review it, keep it, and it helps advocate. This is like, I call this my Ombudsman Bible sometimes, because it helps me know the regulations and crosswalk it to the resident rights. So it's a great tool.
And that is a presentation. Nice
Yep.
and short and sweet, because we couldn't possibly cover everything that is available to you on that Nursing 411 website. It is really a font of information, and it's all for you.
And that's one, I'm so far, I mean, I'm looking at some of these resources for myself as well. So I really, thank you so much for sharing this information. If anybody has a question they want to either type into the chat, feel free, or also you can also just raise your hand or unmute yourself as well. In the meantime, while if anybody has any questions, I did have a couple of questions I wanted to ask all of you based upon your expertise in creating these. I know in the pandemic, many things have gone to like this format of Zoom. What would you recommend? Would you recommend there being Zoom family councils, or live, or combination? What have you seen any succeed more than the other? What's your thoughts on that?
What do you think, Gloria?
Well, I'm going to give you my feel on it. Zoom, I think a lot of families are Zoomed out, to be honest.
Yeah.
But although it is the most safest way right now, if the facility does not have a space for you or the family to meet, I think in person is great, but I also think you have to be mindful of the facility. Do they want you in? Do they have a space for you? And what time is it? And what time of the day is it? Is it at night when some of the elderly, you know, spouses or family members can't get to it? So I say go with whatever works. And if you have to do a hybrid, try to do a hybrid. You know, if you can get yourself in person and do a Zoom for those who can't get there or want to attend, I would say do it that way. It's important to try to meet the needs of the families that can be there and participate.
You know, we've also heard some people not want to attend a family council because they don't want to be targeted by the facility as being a complainer. So we have heard that some family councils have met offsite at like a restaurant or even a McDonald's or, you know, something like that, just to kind of get out of the building, so that the administration had no idea who it was that was saying these things. And sometimes that might be a way in the beginning, because there's always this fear of retaliation. It's not supposed to be happening, but it's a genuine fear that people have.
And Lee, I so agree with you. And that's why I say it's important even for families to know that when they're representing the resident, the loved one that's in the facility, you know, be mindful because the retaliation can still happen to them. Do you know what I'm saying? And we should never, ever dismiss it. But I also agree that maybe having it offsite someplace and maybe creating an event, like having a speaker initially, you know, something to kick it off big time, so they see it's not just all the families coming together for their own agenda and then getting there and arguing over things. I've been in some heated family council meetings, trust me, and you have to realize that you're there for everybody. It's not just your agenda, and it's not just how you feel, and you can't stifle people from talking. So I think having it out someplace privately, if you can find someplace that you would have a private area, because if it's in the, you know, if it's in the community and it's not private, it's still going to get out that you're talking about a facility. Do you know what I'm saying? So I encourage private as much as possible. But I do think that that's a good idea as well.
And many times there's libraries that will give you a room. You know, there's even senior centers that will give you a space. So, you know, you can put your thinking cap on. Stephen, did you have a comment or question?
Yeah, I just had a comment on, you know, you were talking about hybrid, in-person and virtual. I've done those. They get complicated quickly and people get left out. It's usually the people who are online get left out because as the host, you are having to run around with a microphone so everyone online can hear what's being said on the in-person. So I would avoid that at all costs. And then if you have people who need to attend virtually, you know, if it's just one or two, you know, maybe look at doing the hybrid. But if you have enough people, I would consider doing two separate meetings, one in person and one virtual. That way everyone feels heard. But that's just my 2 cents on that.
And Stephen, let me ask you something. Yeah, let me ask a question. Is sometimes, you know, and my experience, sometimes in having two separate, you could end up talking about two separate, have two separate discussions that either side is not hearing the same discussion. So totally understand, you know, that would be a great way. Just, you'd have to try to keep it to the same agenda so the discussion stays the same, or maybe hire take somebody and have them be the microphone person while the host keeps the screen going. But I think it's important to bring everybody together as best you can.
And I would also add to that, Stephen and Lee and everyone here, if you find that Zooming is the best way to stay in touch with everyone, personally speaking, our family council for my dad's nursing home, we've got family members living in Sarasota, Florida. We have people living in New Hampshire and other states. We find that Zoom is the best way, and we Zoom every week because it is, as Lee was saying, and Gloria and Carrie mentioned, it is a support group. And to have that regularity, because things happen every day, happen every week, we find it's been most helpful to have the same Zoom every week. And if you don't have a Zoom room, do like we did. The LTCCC offers a free Zoom room for family councils and resident councils if you need. I'll put the the link in the chat, but just sign up for it. It's free. You can meet as often as you want for as long as you want. And it's a source of empowerment. You don't have to worry about, your Zoom ending in half an hour or 40 minutes the way it used to. This is something that they won't charge you for. They won't ask you about. They won't attend. It's your space for as long as you need it and want it.
That's really, Jenine, thank you for sharing that. I mean, and just while you were talking about that, I thought, sometimes a barrier could be, like, I don't know if my mother, 89-year-old mother, would understand that to join Zoom, she didn't have to pay anything to have her own Zoom account. And now you're making me think, even for these meetings that we do, maybe I need to make sure that people understand Zoom is free.
Right.
You don't pay it. It's not a subscription service. So thank you for that. But that's amazing that they do this, that you can use their Zoom room.
Yes.
What an amazing resource for people. And I really hope that people are hearing that and take advantage of that, because that can be a true barrier, is how is this meeting going to play out? So I think that's really important. Carrie, did you have something you wanted to say?
So, and I don't know if people realize, you really can use a family council to make change. Stephen and I assisted a facility starting a family council that was having a lot of problems. And it took 6-7 months of working together, but they were able to make change. And at the same time, where somebody mentioned, sometimes the meetings can get a little out of control, or some will get heated. Whoever is running that meeting, especially if you're doing it on Zoom, make sure you have your settings correctly. So if you need to mute somebody or block them, that you have that ability. It should be a safe space for everybody. And it's important that everybody knows that it is a safe space, that they can come and talk about the issues that are going on in their facility and what would they like to see change. So you can go to your administration, because that facility did. And it, like I said, it took us a long time, but they made major progress because of what we helped them do.
And Carrie, if I could comment on two of the things you said, I think, this is a very emotional arena for people. And so that I don't want people to feel like, oh my goodness, if we get this, emotions are going to run high and people are going to, sometimes those emotions can just be tearful emotions as well, because people are coming to some realizations. It can be that support group, like it's been mentioned. And so I think it needs to be acknowledged that emotions might run high sometimes. And like we do before this meeting, even maybe set up your own rules beforehand. Out of respect, we let everybody talk. We raise our hand to talk, whatever, come up with your own as a group, what those rules can look like, because you do want to make sure that everybody has that voice. And just the other piece I just wanted to comment on that Carrie mentioned is that this can be a great tool for change, a family council meeting. So if you are a person, an ombudsman, a family advocate trying to have this happen, if you're somebody that's trying to get a meeting going, you can even talk to the facility and say, this is a win-win for you. You don't know what your problems are unless other people help to share that with you. We can keep you, we can be your checks and balance. When we see that a lot of laundry is missing, now you know about it before it becomes a huge problem. If the food is cold, now you know about it before it becomes a huge problem. And we can become part of your QA process, your quality assurance process, to make sure that the checks and balances, we are part of this community, and we should be respected for what it is that we're seeing and hearing as well. And we can help you do a better job, facility. So encourage these. If you're a facility person on here right now, encourage for a family council to happen. What a great way to get that other perspective so that you can make sure that you're providing the best care to those who live in your community. Stephen, did you have a question or comment?
Yeah, there was a question in the comments.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
I saw that.
So Jennifer Fury or Furry, forgive me, I don't want to mispronounce your name. You started a family council, Fury. We have about 17 people attend via Zoom each month. There are 2 people each month who hijack the meetings with their complaints. How do I respectfully take the meeting back? Man, do I know the answer to this question. And you know it too, Gloria. I can tell you, Jennifer, what I did was, when this happened to me, I divided and conquered. I spoke to the people who would do the same thing that you're illustrating in the, you're mentioning here in the chat. I spoke to them privately and found out, I drilled down, what's the complaint? And usually when people complain, it's because they feel powerless. So I helped them, and they were older than me. And that's not to say that there's something wrong with people that are older, but there seems to be a generational thing where people who are older tend to feel kind of powerless. They don't feel empowered to raise their voice and say, hey, wait a minute, like Lee said, show me the regulation, or what is it you mean, like drill down. So I helped empower those people who were complainers. And ironically, they have stayed on to our family council despite their loved one having passed, because they want to stay with the mission of enriching and improving the lives of the residents, and they want to see it through. Go for it.
And I also think it's important, a couple of things, is one, to establish your mission as a family council. And you may have to read that mission every single week before your family council. This is our mission. And not only that, but set the boundaries of the meeting, right? So that's why you want to have an agenda and you want to empower. But also remember, by the time families come to ombudsman or to a family council, their emotions are off. They're off the chart. No one has heard them in the facility. Nothing has changed. They've been talking, nothing's changed. So yeah, it's important so Jennifer, I totally understand, it's hard, but I think gaining respect from them as to empower them and address the concerns, but then maybe the concern is around, in the system itself, it's in the facility, it's a culture. Remember, everything that's happening is a facility culture. So always try to build that relationship with all of the families, but take it back, just as Janine said, take it back and figure out how to help them in a way, maybe aside from the family council, so you can gain it back.
And, Jennifer, I know sometimes it can be hard because you're already in the middle of it, and it may have been going on for quite a while. And then it's hard sometimes to change the way that relationship looks without it feeling intrusive or like you're criticizing that individual. And I think sometimes people, they do, as it's been said, just to be recognized for what it is that they're saying. And I would even suggest at some point, maybe you say, you have some very, very specific things that are going on. How about talk to the ombudsman about that, and they can work with that directly with you, and you can help be a part of that there, because this is specifically happening with you and your loved one, and some of the rest of us might not be seeing this. So that way then they can feel listened to, like they're being empowered with somebody there to be by their side as they're going through that. So that's sometimes the role that us as ombudsmen play. Is to be that person for people to know that they can have somebody to listen to them.
Yeah. And Lee, that's a great point, because, you can, as a family council, you can invite your ombudsman to your family council meeting. If you want them there once a week or once a month or every other month or whatever, but invite them, because they're going to bring also some other ideas to the concerns that are there as well. And I always say, when you have the concerns with the facility, laundry or whatever, ask the questions before you provide the information that you think it needs to get changed. Find out how they're doing the laundry. How does the laundry happen? If you don't know how laundry happens, let them walk you through it first before you start giving them some changes. But definitely, people want to be heard. And if you can just figure out a way to, maybe in the beginning, okay, I'm going to go around the room. If you have a concern, I'm going to write it on this board. And then at the end of the meeting, we'll discuss through the meeting which ones we're going to work on, or at least it's getting heard and they're expressing themselves. So yes, there definitely needs to be a format and a formal way to handle your meetings.
So this is the first time I've ever heard anybody say that residents can be part of the family council. And I think that is beyond brilliant, because there are a lot of residents in our facilities that are capable of speaking up for themselves, and they're going to help us strengthen what we are trying to accomplish. Because in the end, what we are trying to accomplish is taking care of our loved one.
Mm-hmm.
And if our loved ones can participate, then we really are going to know that 80% of the people say, since we got a new kitchen manager, the food is terrible. It's much easier to go to your leadership if you really have the voice of the resident.
Correct. And Carrie, remember, it's your family council. You can set the bylaws, you can set the rules, you can set who you want to be there. It's your family council. I empower residents the same way. It's their resident council. They can have it by themselves if they want to have a resident council. They don't have to have any staff. Obviously, residents in a nursing home do have a social worker or an activities director, but it's your resident council. The first time you get your family council, the first time you get together, decide how you want it to be. Decide what the rules are. Decide who you want to invite. And if you're in the facility and you can have those residents attend, let them attend, respect their privacy or get them involved. But yes, those are the ones that are going to tell you what's really going on in the facility. And I want to say on the flip side, be prepared if a resident, because I had a resident tell me that she didn't like what the family council was trying to do, and she really didn't want to be part of it or listen to them. So just be prepared that you could hear both sides of it. Do you know what I'm saying? But it's your council to set it up the way you want.
All good points. And it brings a couple of questions to my mind as well. Before I do that, though, there's one thing you mentioned about like the laundry and that whole process in figuring out, knowing how is it done so that you can figure out really what needs to happen there.
Uh-huh.
I was an acting administrator in a long-term care facility with a very active family council, and there was a laundry issue. The families were bringing it up. And they wanted the administrator at the resident council, at the family council meetings. So I would attend them once a month on a Saturday. And one of the things we learned through that meeting, which was dynamite for me as the administrator, was people's laundry was coming missing. So then I started asking, well, what are the room numbers? We wrote them down. It was all coming from the same area of the same wing, the same neighborhood in the facility. So there was a problem in one section of the facility, and that was what we needed. I was like, thank you so much, because now we can figure out why this is happening. And so it made it much easier for me than just hearing laundry's missing and we got to do something about it.
Right.
It worked. Like it was just, I was like, yes, this is exactly what should be happening. Finding out information, and how are you going to help me do a better job to make sure that everything is doing better for that facility and the people who live there at large. The other question that I have for you, Gloria, is as an ombudsman, what is your role with family councils? You mentioned that you could go. Do they have to go? What's this role look like for an ombudsman?
For an ombudsman to it, well, the ones that I have been involved with, I would just go and listen. I would be the voice of the resident because I'm a resident-centered advocate, right? So I was kind of like the voice of the resident. If I was hearing something that, I thought maybe was a little bit against resident-centeredness, I would speak up, but I was just there to listen. And we did a lot of empowerment, sort of what we're talking about right now. Like if they were talking about, well, the laundry is constantly missing. I'm not, then they don't want to compensate me for my husband's clothes, or they don't want to do anything like that. They don't want to label them, or they label them, or they take them away from them before they're even labeled. Well, do you know what the process is? I would just kind of bring the questions to them. Do you know what the process is for the laundry in your facility? And 9 times out of 10, they did not know what the process is. And I'm going to tell you what the one thing they did not know, that there was an inventory sheet, that they should be updating that inventory sheet whenever they bring clothes in. They were just bringing things in and never telling anybody. And then boom, 1 week later, it gets washed and it's gone, right? So it was things like that, just talking in conversation with them, empowering them as much as we empower the residents. And that's why I'm excited to be working with Jenine on Family Council, because I think that families need so much empowerment when their loved one enters a nursing home. There's no orientation, like you said in the beginning, for when someone enters a nursing home. And what the family's expectation is not what's happening a month, a week after they're there, right? They think it's a hospital sometimes, that it's an extension of that hospital, and in fact, it's not. So our role in Family Council as an ombudsman is to listen, empower, and give them ideas on maybe how to advocate for it. The one thing is, you know, you need to have some kind of outcome in mind before you bring something to administration. What is it that you're looking for them to change? And how are you going to do that, right? You can't do it unless you know the system and how it works right now.
And I love that you say that, because instead of just going, this is the problem, instead to say, what would that solution look like? And this is what we're thinking would be a solution to that problem, and to have it be a relationship.
Correct.
Not to be a dictatorship on either side of that coin.
Correct.
To have it look like we're working together to make life better.
Correct.
And I think that's really important. And I'm hearing you say then the ombudsman doesn't run the meeting. Nope. It's a family meeting, just like the resident council meeting. Correct. So the ombudsman is there as a resource. Mm-hmm. And if needed, they don't have to be there. Right. It's up to the families, how they want that involvement to look like.
Correct.
Okay. Then my next question becomes, who should be that contact person then for a resident council? If I want to get one going, how would I go about starting that? I know, Jenine, you said you went and you just started talking to people and being there visually, but how would I do it? If I'm on this call right now and I'm like, by golly, I want to do this. What would you tell me? Like, step it out for me. What should I do?
I thought it would be smart. I knew what the answer would be, but I first approached the director of social services, who was the family council liaison, she still is. And I asked her to be put in touch with the family council. And she said, oh, I don't have that information. That's before the, COVID. And this was in maybe May or June of 2020. She couldn't help me. So we started having an information, or my father's nursing home started giving us an informational Zoom every week, like Wednesdays at noon, but they had us on mute because they were afraid that if they took us off of mute, it would be chaos, right? Because we're all adults. So I started using the chat. And in the chat, I wrote, my name is Jenine Ferrari. My dad is a Marine living there. He's been living there since May of 2017. He lives in Eagle Point. His name is this. This is my phone number. This is my email address. I am starting a family group. I didn't even know, the terminology. I've started a family group. I just kind of like faked it. I started a family group. Here's my contact information. Let me know if you'd like to be on my email list. I just started that way. I just put it in the chat, and I was kind of scared, like, what if no one notices? But heck no. The first Zoom, I got 15 people. And then the next one, there were 20 people, and it kept going on and on and on. And then we met Richard. We saw him on a Zoom for Albany, the capital of New York. It was August of 2020. They had a 2-day hearing about nursing homes and COVID in nursing homes and long-term care facilities. And we saw him speaking there. And when I say we, I mean me and my co-founder, who lives in Sarasota, Florida. And we were so taken by him because he's so well-versed and so well-spoken. So we contacted him. We just emailed him. And he said, hey, use our Zoom room. And so we've been using that Zoom room since August of 2020.
Wow.
And sometimes Richard joins us. Usually our ombudsman joins us. Her name is Judy Farrell, and she's amazing. And she asks questions. She answers questions. She's just in the background, kind of like Gloria was saying, just to be there and keep her ears open. And we found that really helpful.
What time of day do you do this?
Every Wednesday at 1 o'clock.
Okay. And that doesn't seem to be a barrier for families.
Some do. Some have said that, but then they change their tune when they actually need, to get a hold of the family council and to, they need more help than they're getting just working on their own. They come around, and it's, you don't have to log on for the entire hour and a half. You can come on and come off. Everyone gets a lunch. It's the federal law. We get at least a half-hour lunch, even if you're working in an Amazon warehouse. So, if your loved one is your priority, log on. It's for your and the residents' best interest. Just log on. And it's kind of addictive because you are meeting other people who are going through the same things that you're going through. They have the same problems. They have the same nurse, that same CNA who's a pain in the ass, or that nurse who never says hi. It's happening to other people too. So you feel you feel heard, you feel seen. You're not going through this alone, because as I mentioned at the beginning of the Zoom, there is no family orientation.
Right.
You're
So
just you're dropped into you're dropped into the facility.
And you made a great comment. Just fake it. So when I started everything that I've done 3 years ago, I knew nothing. Stephen will tell you I was clueless, but I wasn't willing to give up. So I've always used, when you start a new job, when you do something else, fake it until you know it. Because you will know it and you will learn it. Yep.
Yes.
And sometimes it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. Okay, I made a mistake, sorry. But this way you're going to get through, because we are our loved one's voice.
Yes.
And that brings up the question, because I hear this a lot from ombudsmen who get a resident council meeting happening and then it disappears because family members their loved one may not be at the facility anymore. So is there a solution to that in the last 2 minutes? I know that's a pretty big question, but I know that's like in a lot of people's heads. Any solution?
I don't know if there's a solution. I can say that it is up to the family council if they want to have, families who, it says family, friends, and relatives or whatever, right? So if the family council wants those people to still be on the family council, great. I think it's up to the family council. If the facility, balks about it, remember it's not their council, right? So Lee, very quickly, I'm going to use my New York talk fast voice, right? But to start a family council,
Thanks,
I would go by the regulation, and I would go and have a meeting with the administrator and say, I would like to start a family council. And would you please put something in do you send something out to families? Do you mail something? Do you do something? Can I put up a notice? I would go and start that relationship with that administrator right off the bat, because if you do it without them, they could look at it oppositely, right? They could look at it in a bad frame. So I would try to start that relationship building and use them the way the regulation says. They are to notify families. They are to give you a place to meet. And I would start from there. I would like to start a family group. How can you assist me? Here's the regulation. How can you assist me to get this started? Could you send a notice out to families? Can I write something up and post it in the main lobby? Can you put this in your newsletter if they do a newsletter? I would start it that way. But as far as friends, if they want to stay on, I say it's up to the group.
Great. Well, thank you both. I'm going to launch the poll right now. So if people could just answer the quick poll for me, that would be fantastic. And Stephen, do you have a question to ask me?
Yeah, when's our next meeting and what's our next topic?
Okay, well, thank you, Stephen, for asking. Our next meeting is January 24th, and our topic is ADLs. What does it mean? Activities of daily living, what does it mean? And what should it look like? So that's our topic for our next meeting. We have a therapist who runs the therapy in one of the long-term care facilities who's going to be talking to us about it. And I'm hoping that we have a nurse's aide and the restorative nurse join us as well, so we can really find out who's supposed to be doing what when it comes to this care, and how much assistance should I be giving and shouldn't I be doing, and all of those other questions that come out into everybody's minds when we get into the long-term care facility and we don't know what to do.
And Lee, if I can just say something too. I'm sure Jenine will send it out to you, but we're going to have a Facebook Live event at the end of the month. And we're having an attorney who handles a lot of resident council issues talk to us about, do I have to leave the room when my mom or my husband or somebody is getting changed just because the staff says I have to? So she's going to talk about some resident rights, and hopefully you'll join us. It's at the end of the month. I think it's the last Thursday. And
Yes.
As soon as we get all the information, we'll definitely send it out to you so you can share it.
I get that information and I will share it with this group. We can make sure we will get that put into the chat. And we have a Monday memo that we put out every week that we could put it out in that as well. So I'll be looking forward to getting that from you. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, you guys.
Thank
it
you,
was
everyone.
a wonderful meeting. We appreciate you so much.
And Lee, I wanted.
Go ahead. I'm going to stop the recording if that's okay. I'll go ahead and just stop the recording.